did you get involved in woodworking? I know your grandfather was a woodworker.
Yeah. So I grew up in rural Minnesota, and we have a family history of woodworking that dates back to 1896. And when I was little, my dad had a lumber yard, and my grandpa had a millwork company. And so I grew up, all around woodworking and construction and cabinet making. And my grandpa became handicapped. He fell off some scaffolding. And so I ended up working with him, turning on a wood lathe when I was like 6 years old. So my whole life has just been, creativity and making things. I started selling things that I made when my mom had garage sales when I was like 8, 9, and 10. I was selling candle holders that I made. And then after I got out of high school and did a little bit of college, my parents went up to the Lumberjack World Championships in Hayward, Wisconsin. There's a guy there named Art Moe. If you were going to do a family tree of chainsaw carvers back to a certain place, a lot of it would end up there because of all the exposure they had. That event was on Wide World of Sports, and a lot of people went there, people from all over the world. It still is going on now. But that's how I got involved with chainsaw carving. I was trying to make a living in my 19 years old with chip carving, and then my dad brought me this postcard of this guy carving with a chainsaw, and I've been doing it ever since.
Wow, that's really interesting. I remember once it was a hardware store near where I worked, and a guy came in. He had one leg, and he had broken the leg off of his kitchen table, and he went to the clerk and said, "Do you sell wooden legs?" And the guy didn't know what to say to him. But anyways, so I understand you have quite a woodworking business. You do giant bears, I understand.
Yeah, I make a lot of things, Mike. I feel very fortunate. My primary wood product, or my bread and butter, is chainsaw carved wooden bears. And being in Chester on Route 103, the folks that ski at Okemo and Killington drive right by my place, and many of them have second homes up there. And I kind of became prolific with wooden bears. People say mine are the best. They're probably, being a little nice to me. But that is a bread and butter. And then I do art on art terms, different things, furniture, bowls. I work with twig and resin, and do torso pieces. And so I, as with most people involved in the arts that do something for bread and butter, they'd want to be whoever, Andy Warhol or Picasso, and make what you want. But having the wooden bears to fall back on is really cool. And what I bought some equipment too. I have a teachable robot and a couple CNC machines, milling machines. So I'm milling out parts. So I'm selling those to other artists, and we're finishing them in-house. And I'm hoping to get the robot to start furring some of my pieces and do a little bit of light manufacturing and develop some sort of an online business. So I'm trying to grow. I got a lot going on.
It really sounds like you do. You really, with woodworking, you're really branching out.
There you go. Yeah.
Tell me more about your comedy. I mean, I've done a little comedy myself, and I'm interested in what your perspective is on it.
Well, the metaphor that I make is someone who may have wanted to be in professional baseball and kind of gets called up now and then, but never really makes it to the big leagues. So with respect to that metaphor, I've dabbled in trying to get a reality show around my chainsaw carving business and woodworking business, and I haven't been able to get a lot of traction with that. Little bit. I got in the top 3 with A&E a number of years ago in a competition. So we got in the top 3 out of 1,000. I met the guy that produced RuPaul's drag show. So that was pretty cool. So I've had this ever since I was a kid. I've just liked, Johnny Carson and talk shows, and I like entertainment. And I performed with my friends who had a lumberjack show back when I was a kid, the kids that grew up in that town, Hayward, that I was mentioning. And when the first VCRs came out, I got one. So I've always kind of been interested in entertainment and what's evolved now into social media. So trying to stay focused without really being able to, get a reality show or get more traction. And the baseball metaphor, I decided to step up my game to try to be more entertaining, because that's what entertainment is all about. So in starting to do stand-up comedy, now I'm really interacting directly with people in an audience, see whether or not I can get laughs, and that's elevating my skill level. So and in so doing, I've also, really started to enjoy it quite a bit. I like it a lot. So I've been just doing open mics primarily, mostly in the Upper Valley. I started by driving all the way up to Burlington a couple of years ago. We were driving up there, my friend and I, 2 hours one way to do 3 minutes. And we did that all for one fall. And then I was going to Keene. They had an open mic there. They have open mics in Northampton and Westfield. And then if I travel to deliver stuff like to the Cape, I've stopped in Worcester, timed it so I could do a mic. And then most recently, I've been doing them in the Upper Valley at Sawtooth Kitchen in Hanover and Brightside Brewery in West Lebanon.
Oh, you're doing a lot of traveling. That's good. You're getting more exposure.
Yeah, well, the problem is with respect to open mics, there's mostly open micers there. That's what they call the people that do it. And they don't laugh. Like even me, I like comedy. It's what I'm there for. But I'm thinking about setup and punchline with the comics. And in thinking about it, you're kind of engaged more and not laughing. And we really need laughers in order to judge whether or not we're funny. So, a couple of weeks ago, I was up, 12 open micers and 8 people in the audience. That's it, and then nobody's laughing. So you're driving all that way and doing all that work and not getting a response. So that's the problem with open mics. But I think that I'm trying to encourage my peers to put more effort into promoting these things to try to get more people to come, so that we can get more of a response. And then I'm putting a performance studio in my gallery in Chester, a performance space in my art gallery. And I'm going to start having some things there too. And that there, I'm going to focus on less performers and more audience participation.
I know comedy is pretty important. I know I use a lot of it in my work. I work in a supermarket part-time. And I have pretty much a following of people that just want to come to my line and listen
to your jokes. Yeah.
And I get to a point where I'll be on the street, somebody come up and tell me a joke. It's like, I'm not even working. I go, it's like, okay. And I tell the one, my mother told me a joke years ago, and my mother just turned 98, and she said the minister was in church, and he did a sermon. At the end of the sermon, they passed the plate, for a donation. And somebody put a $100 bill on the plate. So he got up in front of his people and he said, whoever put that $100 on the plate, we want to show our appreciation. That person can pick out 3 hymns. And the guy in the back pew stood up and go, I'll take him, and I'll take him, and I'll take him. I said, Mom.
That's funny.
I think comedy pretty crucial. You got people having a bad day, and you use comedy, and sometimes it works. Sometimes people that don't have a sense of humor, just like you just back up and.
Yeah, well, I agree 100%. It's and my family, when I was a kid, humor was really important. My uncle and my cousin Tim and my cousin David had really good sense of humors. And then my Uncle Ray, who was actually my dad's uncle, he was quite a bit older. When I was very little, Uncle Ray would tell stories, and he was more of a storyteller than a comic. But he told stories of how he was able to borrow my grandpa's Model T, it was my grandma's brother, Uncle Ray, and drive to Hamburg, which was only 12 miles away. But with the Model T, they would get like 2 flat tires along the way and have to add alcohol to the radiator because that would boil out. And it would take them like an hour to go 12 miles and have to patch tires, from the gravel roads. But they wanted to go to Hamburg because that's where the dance was and that's where they could meet the girls. And, I'm a little kid listening to these stories. It was just so intriguing. And then growing up in Minnesota, too, with Garrison Keillor. And then the whole thing with Steve Martin, when he became so popular, that was an influential time with me. But I never really thought about comedy as a career, and I don't know why. It's weird. So being my age now, having this sort of interest in this stuff, and being so excited about it, I feel like a teenager again, or like a college age person, and what you're going to do with your life. But I grew up in a town of 350 people in rural Minnesota with a bunch of grumpy Germans with a hard work ethic, and like going to art school or going to Second City or the Groundlings or something like that would have never crossed anyone's mind. It's just like we get together, we laugh, we do this and that, but. And even, watching people, comedians on the Tonight Show, I used to love it, but I never thought about it as a living. I got paid for a gig the other day. That was kind of cool. A couple Sundays ago. That was fun. First paid gig. But yeah, and I agree 100% when they say laughter is the best medicine. And I know too, like when I part of what I do with my business is sell art. And along with that, I need to build trust. So within 45 minutes, I'm making friends with potential buyers or people coming in my gallery. And then I have to get them, if they want to order something, to be willing to give me $250 on something that cost $1,000 and leave me with that money and leave with the idea that they're going to get that product done. And part of breaking the ice, having a sense of humor or connecting with them or commenting on their character some way, I feel really helps a lot. And I'm so all that stuff matters to me, and really making sure that those people are having a memorable experience, because part of what I'm selling with my art is memories, especially to tourists.
Yes, that's great. In doing the comedy, you have to try to have enough self-esteem that you don't get too nervous to be able to perform. Well,
that is something that I think having an art business, or like with you working with the public, and again, getting back to what I was saying about not doing this earlier, like when I was a kid, I wasn't shy, but yeah, getting up and trying to sing in front of people or doing public speaking. And I traveled with my friend's Lumberjack show and did some comedy with that. And then I used to, record my friends and pretend we were on talk shows. I started a public access station down on Cape Cod. We talked about that earlier before we got together. Right. So, but yeah, so one of the things that I've been focusing on now is exactly that. And I'm a little bit of a thrill seeker, so I like to drive my motorcycle fast for a short amount of times, my car faster along corners without risking my life, and I like to stand on the top of the ski hill on a very steep mountain, look down and be a little afraid, or kayak and not know what's going around the corner, like in the spring thaw. So that feeling of what we call fear, that I've tried to turn into the excitement part of it, and get excited about that and embrace it. You get what I mean? Like when you're skiing and you're just a little bit fast and you got to slow down. That gets me going, and I like it. So that's what I've been trying to do. And if I don't think I'm in a position to give people advice on how to do stand-up comedy, but I've listened to so many things about it. That's one of the nice things about carving wooden bears. I've done this for 40 years. I can carve them pretty much with my eyes closed. So I've been listening to podcasts, books, tutorials, all kinds of stuff on comedy and public speaking and confidence, like what you're talking about. And one of the things that's said many times by many people is the crowd can smell a lack of confidence, and they'll eat you alive if they do. So you got to fake it till you make it kind of thing. So I always go out there like I don't care. And then the other thing, and I apologize for going on and on a little bit here, Mike, but I just want to make this point too. I've gotten so much crap in my life for being unique and different and all the stuff that I do, as an artist and everything. And I've had so many experiences with so many different people. I want to be liked like everybody else does, but I do have the confidence as me as a person. I have friends, I have nice relationships, and I don't freaking give a shit what people think. I really don't care. I want them to have fun, but if some of them don't think I'm funny, I don't care. Plus, my parents were very young when they had me. I don't think they wanted me. So I've been dealing with this my whole life, rejection.
Yeah, I learned after the first time doing stand-up that the second time I treated it's just a bullshit session. We're just shooting the crap between ourselves, and I was more relaxed if I could do it in that perspective.
Yeah.
Just say, hey,
You and that I think that's really the trick in a lot of things, especially when it comes to acting. And that's why I really like watching Saturday Night Live too. I got to meet Sarah Sherman from Saturday Night Live. I went to her show and I gave her a little sculpture, and I got a chance to meet her. Yeah, that was really fun. I saw her show. She's like amazing. But the level of confidence that she showed in her act was unbelievable, and I think that's a big part of it. I think people respond to that too. Like in talking to some of my peers, even with respect to my art career, you can't go into the arts feebly. It won't work. Like if you want to make a living as an artist, you got to be willing to work 24/7 and be broke half the time, and put yourself out there, and it's just complete. There's no stability at all. I mean, now at this point in my life, with everything that I've done, I know my work will sell, and I have art collectors I can call for deposits if I need it and whatever. But I think it's the same thing with entertainment, and I obviously that people that get to a higher level probably have some education in their background, or went to Second City or the Groundlings or something like that. A lot of the Saturday Night Live people came from there, or were incredibly committed. Jerry Lewis, for instance, I've been doing some research on him. His dad was a vaudevillian, and Jerry Lewis was in shows at like 5 years old, and by the time he was 19, he was already an accomplished performer, just from being in his dad's shows. And what he did with his career was amazing.
I did a little research with comedians. A lot of comedians had very tragic personal lives that they didn't show it through the comedy. I mean, Robin Williams
Yeah.
had a lot of problems and ended up committing suicide.
Yeah.
And you don't know that.
Well, I think I think that why would you get up there and do that? Yeah, so I do think that yes, part of getting some positive attention and making people laugh or dealing with hardship. I listened to Dana Carvey and David Spade's podcast quite a bit, and both of them talk about their childhoods, and the struggles that they had, and then getting into entertainment, for positive feedback. And I think too, like Jim Carrey, for instance, I think he actually had a fairly good relationship with his dad. I don't know if his dad was in entertainment or something or what, but so we're getting into a different area here. It's like the Aerosmith song, "There's a Hole in My Soul," and if you try to fill it with different things, that doesn't work. Even if you get the accolades from the public and that doesn't fill the hole in your soul, then doing all this stuff isn't going to help. And and maybe there's a crossover, and for some people the response, the feedback is good. I don't know. I mean, for me, I like entertaining people. I like having my mind occupied, and I like having challenges. And getting back to Jim Carrey, I don't have any kind of talent like that guy had. But if he would have been a mountain climber, he'd climb every mountain in the whole world, and then what's left? So part of like his struggles now, for me, I think he wanted to do all these things to try to fill something, and he's not happy. Like, how can you be like one of the greatest entertainers, movie people, and make all that money and then still not be happy? That's tragic to me. Yeah, I don't get it. I think he should be happy, which is not fair of me to say, but that brings back to your point. What are they really struggling with mental health, childhood development? What are they trying to fulfill with this other thing that might even become a drug at that point or something?
Yeah, it's pretty tragic. I mean, look at John Belushi.
Yeah.
He was quite a talent. Of course, drugs took over, and
yeah,
they wanted to get as high as they could with life or with artificial health.
Yeah, and I know, like I quit drinking and drugging as a young man, and I've struggled with addiction my whole life, but just like, okay, this isn't what I do. But when I have real highs in my life, I can just feel all that stuff around me, and it's like it makes sense to me how. And I worked for Steven Tyler for 12 years, like at his house making things for him. And he struggled with addiction off and on his whole life. And I've talked to him about this too. And I think that if you're an addict, it's so much part of who you are as a person. So whether you're down and you want to amp yourself up, or you're up and you want to make it more. And like, I felt it really strongly. I did something not that long ago, and it was like, oh my God. You can't, it's hard to separate yourself from your addiction, is what I'm saying. And it takes some real something or another, a higher power, I guess, for a lot of people, if you're into the 12 steps or whatever people do for recovery. But with respect to the studying that I've done on John Belushi and Chris Farley and some of these other people, you would think that with all the help and support and money and everything that they have around them, that they would be able to get help, and then they can't. I went to Chris Farley's gravesite in Madison, Wisconsin, last summer on my way back to Minnesota for a family event. So I went. He's in a crypt in Madison. So I stopped in there. That was pretty powerful. But he was such a talent, and yeah, I don't know. Our culture right now has real problems with addiction, and we don't seem to have answers. And part of what I think about is how easy it is to get anything we want. And it's like, I was skiing last winter. It was February. It was cold. I came off the mountain. I was hungry. I walked into Shaw's. There's mangoes there on sale in February in Vermont. Mangoes, and I'm like, this is the Garden of Eden right here. And I'm like, I can get anything I want in the store, fresh fish in the middle of winter. So the point that I'm trying to make is we don't have to struggle for things. And I don't think we've evolved as humans to really be able to limit ourselves on stuff, because prior to whenever, after the Depression, I guess, or the life was really a struggle for food for a lot of people even. And now if you got money, you can get anything. I mean, I don't want to bring up drugs, but and I don't do them, but I would bet within a half an hour to an hour I could find any drug I wanted somewhere in this town. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's like, how do you, so with respect to all of this, being able to have limits and work within those limits, I think is hard for many of us, especially people that are struggling with addiction, and whether they're John Belushi, star of a huge show with all the means for recovery and help, or somebody that's out on the street, it's probably just as difficult for both of them. It's not easy.
Yeah, with John Belushi, I felt bad for Jim, because he was always in his father's shadow.
Yeah.
And I think he felt bad about his brother's passing, but then he had to grow it himself into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do about that as a culture. I think about it a lot, and it's I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's something has to change, because it's really hard on a lot of people, and it's hard on families, relationships, our culture as a whole. And I mean, I'm 62 years old. I've dealt with this stuff my whole life, and it's like, I don't know how to get it better. I don't have any answers. That's why I make jokes, Michael. I want to tell my church joke that my cousin Tim told me when I was a kid. You triggered my memory with your church joke.
Sure.
All right, so this is the deal. This guy meets his buddy on the street on a Sunday afternoon, and he's got two black eyes. So his friend says, "How did you get your black eye?" And he said, "Well, I was in church, and we were singing a hymn, and the lady in front of me, she had kind of a bigger butt, and her dress was stuck in her butt crack. So I thought I'd be nice and pull the dress out, so it wasn't stuck in her butt crack, and she turned around and punched me in the eye." And then the guy says, "Well, that explains your one black eye. How did you get the other one?" And he said, "Well, she was so mad at me, I thought I should tuck it back in, and then she punched me in the other eye."
Wow. That's what you get for butting in. If people want to look at your work or get a hold of you, what information should you...
So my name is Barre, like Barre, Vermont, Barre, and my last name is Pinske, kind of like Penske Trucking, Roger Penske, the IndyCar guy, but with an I, Pinske, Pinske. Right. So if you Google Barre, like Barre, Vermont, and Pinske, like Penske, most of my stuff is on Facebook now. Okay. And I'm trying to gather more Facebook viewers, but if you just Google me, all kinds of stuff comes up. I got a lot of things online. I don't have an active website right now because I don't have much inventory and I don't have help. And I think websites are important, but they also cost money and they take maintenance. And now with social media, they're not obsolete, but it's not the same as it used to be. Right. So most of my stuff is on Facebook. And I also have the Vermont Wooden Bear Company page that I use to kind of promote the bear carving. But it's mostly Facebook.
Okay.
And then people could come to Chester too to the gallery there. It's kind of cool because it's what the biggest response that I get from people is that it's authentic, and they really like that. So they're able to go into someone who's making a living as an artist. I have a showroom with my art in it, and then I have my working studio, and so it's kind of neat. You get to see what somebody does along with the art, and that's not that far from here. It's only 45 minutes up the road, if that.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks for all your information and coming to Brattleboro to do the interview.
I love Brattleboro. I think it's a cool cultural town. It's really neat. I like the downtown architecture. There's a lot of galleries here. I do the gallery walk. That's really, really a wonderful thing. Sad that the cow parade isn't happening anymore. I used to love that. And I hope that it gets more of a resurgence too, with people and culture, and grows a little bit. All of the southern part of the state could use I don't know. I mean, I'm always wanting things to improve and get better, and tourism is a big part of how things work nowadays. And in my little town, people aren't really enthusiastic about tourism. But I think Brattleboro relies on that a little bit. And I hope our whole southern Vermont region, I think, could benefit from working together with more tourism and arts and culture. And I know that they're doing it too. The Arts Council has broken up the state into zones now. So I think a lot of stuff does happen here in Bratt around arts and culture. So that's really cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Michael. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the throw in the heifers. I only caught the tail end one day.
Jeez.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Barry.